Today I want to talk about my 8 tips for building a confident personal brand even when you might not feel it. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. Last year I read The Confidence Code for the first time. It's a book by Katty Kay and Claire Shipman. And in the book they say, perhaps most striking of all, we found that success correlates more closely with confidence than it does with competence. So it's one thing to understand the importance of confidence when it comes to building your career or your business, but it's another to actually be able to execute on your confidence or to be able to progress with the things that you want to with a confident mindset. So today I want to talk about the 8 little mindset shifts that have helped me to show up as the most confident version of my personal brand as I can. I still have a long way to go in this space as well, but if you are struggling with confidence when it comes to building your career or your business, then hopefully some of these little mindset shifts can help you as well. My mindset shift number 1 is to remember the spotlight effect. Psychologists describe the spotlight effect as essentially how we overestimate how much other people are observing us and thinking about us, when in reality, they are the center of their own world. They are probably thinking about themselves or the people maybe closest to them more than they are thinking about what you're doing. So when it comes to you wanting to put your most confident version of your personal brand out there and maybe worrying about what other people might think or how much other people are paying attention to what you're doing, just remember that they probably aren't actually thinking about you or observing you as much as you might think. The mindset shift number 2 is another effect, and it is called the halo effect. This is something that was coined by Jeffrey Pfeiffer, a Stanford professor, and this is about when people think that you are quite talented or capable in one particular area, they are naturally going to assume that you will be talented or capable in another area. So essentially that reputation that you have established in one area can follow you into another. Sometimes it's easy to think that when we are making changes in our career or in our business, that we are taking these huge leaps into this unknown space. And it might feel that way for you. But remind yourself that because of things like the halo effect, when you are moving your career or your business in potentially a different direction, if you have already established a good reputation for yourself, then people are going to think that that is a really natural move for you to be in this different space. And they're probably already going to feel like you have strong capabilities in that space. So try and not doubt yourself as much as you might when you are making those changes in your career or in your business. Tip number 3 that I like to remember when it comes to being able to show up confidently, particularly online, is to remember something that Ernest Hemingway said. And he said, I believe that basically you write for 2 people, yourself, then you write for who you love, whether she can read or write or not, and whether she is alive or dead. I really love that that is about showing up for your craft, whatever that may be, if it's writing or if it's showing up online in a YouTube video or on a podcast, and doing that for yourself and maybe doing that for another person that is closest to you. So maybe if you're married, it is showing up for your partner, putting in the best possible effort that you can in your work. Maybe it is showing up in your work for your children, showing up for your best friend, whoever it might be, the people that believe in you, and showing up for them and yourself first and foremost. But I also think it is really important to consider adding a third category to that as well. And for me, that is showing up for your audience. And even if that is just one person, showing up for the people that you serve. So showing up for yourself, showing up for someone that you love, and showing up for the people that you serve, even if it is one person that is going to be able to get value from what it is that you have to share. My tip number 4 for your confidence cheat code is to get to the root of your limiting belief. In neurolinguistics programming, there was one particular concept that really stood out to me that has always resonated, and it is this idea of a limiting belief actually being a limiting decision. So, when you think, for example, that you aren't a good writer, that you're not a good public speaker, or that you're not good at technology, or whatever your limiting belief is, ask yourself where that limiting belief actually came from and when. Because the idea behind a limiting belief, at least in NLP, is that there was a particular event that likely preceded you making that decision to have that limiting belief. So, this can be, for example, going as far back into your childhood and working out where that came from. So, maybe someone told you that you weren't good at writing. Maybe they told you that you weren't great at speaking. Maybe they told you that you weren't creative. And those little comments, which may have just been a passing comment that even that person didn't give much attention to, could have potentially changed the trajectory of how you believe in yourself in that particular area and planted the seed for you to have this limiting belief in the long term, to make that decision to have that limiting belief. So when you find yourself feeling held back in building your personal brand because you have these limiting beliefs, get to the root cause of where that came from. And then you have to reframe what that limiting belief is, which is tip number 5. I once heard someone describe that there are 3 stories. There is the story that we tell ourselves, the story that we tell other people, and then there's the truth. So when it comes to your limiting belief, just try and pay attention to the stories that you are telling yourself about that, or the stories that you are telling other people. And most importantly, what is the truth when it comes to that limiting belief? Because in most cases, it's probably going to be likely that you have already proven your limiting belief wrong. For example, if you say that you aren't good at writing, then try and find an example in which you actually proved that you can do that thing really well. And that can be in any context. That might not be writing that you published online, but you might be fantastic at writing a particular report in your workplace. And those skills can translate into eventually being able to write online. You may think that you're not creative, but you might have a particular element of your professional life or your personal life where you actually do show really great creativity that you've never given yourself credit for. So try and think about what the truth is behind that limiting belief. Try and find specific examples that allow you to prove that that limiting belief isn't correct and that you can rewrite that limiting belief for yourself and unlock your potential in that area. Because you have potentially been lying to yourself without even realizing it. And this leads nicely into my tip number 6, which is to beware of secondary gain. This was something that I also learned in reference to NLP. And it is the idea that we can sometimes hold on to particular beliefs or behaviors because that problematic behavior actually has some sort of benefit in our life. And so we subconsciously hold on to that belief or that behavior so that we can continue to have that benefit. For example, if you tell yourself that you aren't a public speaker or that you don't enjoy giving presentations in your workplace or as a part of your business, then that means that the gain that you get out of that is not having to put in the work required for that, not having to prepare, not having to take the risk of putting yourself out there and being the center of attention for that particular moment in time. There's a gain that you get from that. I know for me, I used to believe that I wasn't good at technology and I had to rewrite that limiting belief over time. And looking back, I know that whenever I told myself or other people that I wasn't good at technology or that I wasn't good at this particular thing, it meant that other people had to do that thing. And of course, I wasn't doing that deliberately, but subconsciously, it means that you don't have to be the one to put in that effort to learn that technology, to develop those new skills. So when it comes to the limiting beliefs that you have about maybe something that you want to pursue when it comes to your personal brand strategy, then ask yourself if there is some sort of secondary gain that you are getting out of holding on to that limiting belief, and be aware of what those secondary gain elements are. My tip number 7 is to build the muscle through exposure therapy. Exposure therapy is this idea of gradually exposing yourself to a stimulus that you fear or gives you anxiety, so that over time you can gradually build up your confidence in that area. So if, for example, you find that you don't enjoy public speaking, maybe this is an opportunity to start to put your hand up for presentations that you may not have normally done, or start to give regular updates in maybe your monthly staff meeting, or a forum that allows you to be exposed to that thing that you don't necessarily feel comfortable with. And over time, when you have had more exposure to that thing, it will start to feel normal. I like to always think about the phrase or the saying that everything is hard to begin with. Pretty much everything we have ever learned since we were children was really hard to begin with. It was hard for us to learn to read and write, but we do that now. It comes really naturally to us. So eventually the things that you think are really, really difficult to begin with will start to get easier over time. And for me, I have found that when it comes to showing up online, publishing blogs every single week, publishing YouTube videos and podcast episodes, that exposure therapy has played a really key part in that process, because everything that seemed really different to begin with at the start of this process just feels really normal now to be able to do. So I would encourage you that if there is something you want to try, think beyond just the mindset shifts and actually build that muscle, actually execute on that thing so that you can develop your confidence in that space over time. My tip number 8 is to put your worries in perspective. I've mentioned this on this channel a couple times, but growing up, my best friend and I absolutely loved the song Everybody's Free by Baz Luhrmann, and you may have heard of it. It's also nicknamed the sunscreen song, and it is this litany of life advice that is just so profound and simple. And one of our favourite lines in the song really describes putting your little worries into perspective, and it's something that always resonated with us. In the song, it says, "Don't worry about the future, or worry, but know that worrying is as effective as trying to solve an algebra equation by chewing bubblegum. The real problems in your life are apt to be the things that never crossed your worried mind, the kind that blindside you at 4 p.m. on some idle Tuesday." I in no way want to trivialize how you might feel about showing up on social media or showing up in person at events. Maybe it's at a networking event or giving a presentation. But I would encourage you to try and put those things into perspective. And I know that can be difficult, and maybe you haven't had experiences yet in life that allow you to have that frame of reference, or maybe it's difficult to think about those things. But what I have found is that when you have had those really difficult experiences, you realize that those little things that you worry about really don't matter when it comes to the really big things in life. So I try and not worry about what people on social media might think, or strangers might think, or people in my industries or my former workplaces or whatever it might be might think about me showing up online in a particular way, or showing up in my personal brand in a particular way, because I know that the people that are going to judge me about those things probably aren't my people anyway. And then regardless of that, I put that into perspective, because I know that the things that matter to me the most are my friends, my family, my health, and those bigger things in life outside of what people might think of my personal brand. I hope that these mindset shifts and tips help you to create a little confidence cheat code when it comes to building your personal brand. If you want to learn more about personal branding, then subscribe to this channel and I'll see you in the next episode.